Oh hi.
The Netherlands, Holland, the state consisting of the main territory in Western Europe and the islands of Bonaire, St. Eustatius and Saba in the Caribbean Sea. Called by also Caribbean Netherlands. In Western Europe the territory is washed by the North Sea. Coastline length -451 km. And borders on Germany 577 km. And Belgium 450 km. Together with the islands of Aruba, Curaçao and Sint Maarten having the special status. Self-governed state education. The Netherlands is included into the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Koninkrijk der Nederlanden. The relations between dicks of the kingdom are governed by the Charter of the Kingdom of the Netherlands adopted in 1954. National flag, three-colored. Red, white, blue across. The coat of arms, the board of blue collar topped with a gold crown which is supported from sides by two heraldic lions. On a board the reared crowned lion with a sword in a paw. Under a board the royal motto. Je maintiendrai. I will stand. The anthem Wilhelmus. A song about Wilhelm. A national holiday on April 27. Day of the King. The official capital of the state, according to the Constitution of the Netherlands, is Amsterdam, where the monarch takes oath of allegiance to the Constitution. At the same time the actual capital is The Hague, where the royal residence, parliament and the government and also most embassies of the foreign states are located. Other important cities. Rotterdam, the biggest port of the country and one of the largest ports of the world. Utrecht, the center of a railway system of the country, and Eindhoven, the center of electronics and high technologies.
The Hague, Amsterdam, Utrecht and Rotterdam make agglomeration Randstad, where about 7.5 million people live. The area of the territory in the European part -41543 km.
The land -33888 km. Water -7650 km. The population people. On November 15, 2021 assessment.
The area of the territory in the Caribbean Sea -978.91 km. Bonaire, St. Eustatius and Saba -322 km. Aruba -178.91 km.
Curaçao -444 km. Sint Maarten -34 km. The population -313,968 people. Bonaire, St. Eustatius and Saba -18012 people, Aruba -103,889 people, Curaçao -154,843 people, Sint Maarten -37224 people. The Netherlands, the member of the Union, NATO, Council of Europe, the European Union, ODE. Part of the Schengen area and Benelux countries. Official language, Netherlands.
The Netherlands is often called by Holland as the Southern and Northern Holland is only 2 from 12 provinces of the present Netherlands, being throughout all history the most developed and therefore the most known outside the Netherlands.
For this reason in many other countries of Holland, often called the whole country, In Russian this name was widely adopted after Great Embassy of Peter I. As the focus of interest of the Russian Tsar included the places which are most developed from the technical point of view, and they in the territory of the Netherlands mostly were located in the province Holland, she also was visited by Great Embassy. Telling houses about a visit to the Netherlands, members of embassy pretty often called the country of Holland, without mentioning the name of the state in general. Since January 1, 2020, official institutions, the companies, printing editions and higher education institutions of the Netherlands began to designate the country only under the name Netherlands, having refused the name Holland. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands explained that it is made for formation of the unified national brand. The name Netherlands in translation means the lower lands, however it is literally wrong to translate them, as for the historical reasons this term it is accepted to call the territory which is approximately corresponding to the modern Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg. Benelux countries. At the end of the Middle Ages era, the area located in lower reaches of the Rhine rivers, Maas, Scheldt along the coast of the North Sea began to be called as the seaside low-lying land, or the lower lands. De Lage Landen by DZ, die Nederlanden. The first official mention of the use of the name Netherlands belongs to the 14th-15th centuries.
The first archaeological evidence of stay of the ancient person in the territory of the present Netherlands belongs to the Lower Paleo.
About 800,000 years ago, they were engaged in hunting and collecting. At the end of Ice Age, the territory was populated with various Paleolithic groups. About 800 years BB in this territory the Mesolithic tribe lived, and in the next several millennia there came the Iron Age with rather high standard of living. In arrival time of Romans, the territory of the modern Netherlands was populated with the German tribes, such as Tubant, Caninafata and Frieses, which lodged there about 600 years BC. The Celtic tribes, such as Eberona and Menapia, occupied the country south. The German tribes of Frieses are one of branches of Tefton which came to territories of the Netherlands approximately in the middle of the I millennium BB. At the beginning of the Roman colonization in the country also there arrived the German tribes of Abatava and Toxandra.
In the period of the Roman Empire, the southern part of the present Netherlands was occupied by Romans and Gallia Belgica.
And later the province de Lower Germany. Latin of Germania Inferior became a part of the province of Belgica. Latin. In the Middle Ages the lower countries, which are approximately consisting of present Belgium and the Netherlands, included various counties, duchies and dioceses which were a part of the Sacred Roman Empire. They were united in one state under the power of Habsburg in the 16th century. After distribution of Calvinism, the Counter-Reformation which caused split in the country followed.
Attempts of the Spanish King Philip II to centralize the state led to a revolt of demanding Spanish domination under William Oranski's leadership. On July 26, 1581, the independence of the country, which is officially recognized by other states only after 80-year war.
1568-1648 was declared.
In the years of the War of Independence, Golden Age of the Netherlands, the period of economic and cultural prosperity which lasted all the 17th century began.
After the termination of the French occupation at the beginning of the 19th century, the Netherlands turned into the monarchy under the power of Oranje House. In 1830, Belgium finally separated from the Netherlands and became the independent kingdom. Luxembourg found independence in 1890.
Under pressure of the liberal politicians, the country in 1848 was transformed to parliamentary constitutional monarchy.
Such political system remained also till this day, with a short break during Nazi occupation. During World War I, the Netherlands kept a neutrality, but during World War II within 5 years was occupied by Germany. During the German invasion, Rotterdam was subjected to bombing, at which the downtown was almost completely destroyed. Hard Dutch Jews. More than 70% of all Dutch Jews became the victims of the Holocaust during occupation. After war, fast restoration of the country began that was promoted by Marshall Plan organized by the United States of America. Thanks to it, the Netherlands quickly managed to restore national economy and to reach economic growth. This state independence was gained by the former colonies Indonesia and Suriname. As a result of Massachusetts immigration from Indonesia, Turkey, Morocco, Suriname and the Antilles, the Netherlands became the country with many cultures and a big share of the Muslim population. In the 60th and 70th years there were big social and cultural changes.
Catholics and Protestants began to communicate more with each other, and differences between segments of the population became less noticeable because of growth of the standard of living and development of education too.
Economic women's rights much more extended, and all of them began to take high positions at the enterprises and in the government more often. Also they were granted passive suffrage, that is the right to be elected. The government began to care not only for economic growth, but also for environment protection. The population acquired the wide social rights. Pensions, tolls and disability became one of the highest in the world. On March 25, 1957, the Netherlands became one of founders of the European Union and further made for the European integration much. However, on a referendum on the European Constitution in June 2005, more than a half of Netherlanders voted against its acceptance. Not the last role in the negative plan was played by the ban on holding a referendum concerning transition of the country from Gulden for Euro. Thus the Netherlands became the second country, after France, which rejected the draft of the Uniform Constitution of the EU. The Prime Minister from July 22, 2002 to October 14, 2010 was the leader of the Christian Democratic Appeal, January Peter Balkenende. On February 22, 2007 he created the fourth cabinet, the coalition of the Christian Democratic Appeal, Labour Party and small party the Christian Union. 6 seats in Parliament. The party leader of the Werkvoorter Bos and the leader of the Christian Union André Rauwvoet became Balkenende's deputies in the government. On February 20, 2010 the fourth cabinet of January Peter Balkenende broke up because of disagreements of dicks of the coalition concerning participation of the Netherlands troops in anti-terrorist operation in Afghanistan. The party leader of the Werkvoorter Bos supported the fastest withdrawal of all Netherlands troops from Afghanistan, whereas the leader of the coalition January Peter Balkenende insists on extension of the mandate in Afghanistan for 1 year. The mandate expired in August 2010. In February 2010 in Afghanistan there were 1900 Netherlands soldiers. New elections were appointed. In parliamentary elections on June 9, 2010 the ruling party the Christian Democratic Appeal lost 20 of 41 deputy mandates, and on elections the Liberal People's Party for Freedom and Democracy, the left-centrist Labour Party and the Party for Freedom known for the anti-Muslim views achieved the best results. On October 14, 2010 Mark Rutte, the leader of the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy became the new Prime Minister of the Netherlands. The Party for Freedom was a part of ruling coalition with NP and De Chaet without the right for ministerial posts. Parties of the ruling coalition: NP, De Chaet and PiS had the 76th deputy mandate from 150 seats in the second chamber and 37 of 75 in the first. On April 23, 2012 Rutte submitted to the Queen Beatrix the resignation.
Unsuccessful negotiations with opposition on the budget of 2013 and possible measures at an exit from financial crisis became the reason of such actions from Rutte.
In particular, one of such measures is cut in public expenditure for €16 billion. After the early parliamentary elections which took place in September 2012, Rutte created the coalition government of the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy and the Labour Party. Main articles:
Constitution of the Netherlands, Political structure of the Netherlands and political parties of the Netherlands.
The first constitution of the Netherlands of 1815 allocated with the main power of the king, but conferred legislative powers to two-chamber parliament. Estates General.
The modern constitution of the country was adopted in 1848 at the initiative of the King William II and the famous liberal Johan Rudolf Thorbecke. This constitution can be considered peaceful revolution because she sharply limited the power of the king and delegated executive power to the cabinet.
The parliament was from now on elected on direct elections, and it received a great influence on decisions of the government. Thus, the Netherlands became one of the first countries in Europe which made transition from absolute monarchy by constitutional monarchy and parliamentary democracy. In 1917 change in the constitution granted electoral rights to all men who reached 23 years. In 1919 the right to vote was acquired by all women. Since 1971 all citizens who reached 18 years have the right to vote. The largest revision of the Constitution took place in 1983.
From now on not only the political, but also social rights were guaranteed to the population.
Protection against discrimination. On the basis of religion, political convictions, race, a floor and two other reasons. The ban on the death penalty and the right for a living wage. The government received a duty to protect the population from unemployment and to protect the environment.
Several changes in the constitution after 1983 cancelled military service at the call of and allowed to use armed forces for peacekeeping operations abroad.
The monarch of the Netherlands officially is a head of state, however delegates the power to the cabinet. The annual throne speech proclaimed by him in Day of Princes at the beginning of parliamentary year. Day of Princes falls on the third Tuesday of September. Belongs to number of many functions of the king as head of state. Plans of the government for the forthcoming year are presented in the throne speech. The monarch plays also important role when forming the government. After elections, the head of state holds consultations with leaders of fractions, chairman of the first and second chambers of parliament, and with the vice chairman of the state council. According to the recommendation, the king can appoint informant, who finds out what parties are ready to collaboration in the government. Still, there was yet no case that one party had absolute majority. In appointment of the informant, there is no need if it is in advance known what parties want to form an office in common. The agreement on conditions of formation of the government is result of negotiations between these parties. In this agreement, plans of the coalition for the forthcoming 4-year period of board are stated. After achievement of this agreement, the king appoints formator, which tasked to create an office. Mostly, the formator also becomes the prime minister of the new government. New ministers are appointed by the royal decree and are sworn in by the king. Since 2013, the king is Willem Alexander from the Oransky dynasty, the successor of a throne, his oldest daughter Princess Oranskaya Katerina Maya. From 1890 to 2013, on a throne there were only women. The monarch quite often abdicates in favor of the successor on reaching advanced age. All three replaced each other in the 20th century of the queen so made. Wilhelmina, Juliana and Beatrix. In practice, the monarch almost doesn't interfere with political life, being limited to official ceremonies, but at the same time has a certain influence on formation of the new government after the parliamentary elections and on appointment of royal commissioners in provinces. Legislature. The monarch. Nominally, the Estates General, Parliament, and to a lesser extent the government possess. The Parliament consists of 2 chambers. The first, 75 places, and the second, 150 places. The second chamber, possessing the main power, is chosen general by direct vote for 4 years. The first chamber is elected in an indirect way by provincial parliaments. The next provincial elections took place on March 18, 2015. The structure of the first chamber is elected on May 26, 2015. Functions of the first chamber come down to ratification of the bills which are already drafted and adopted by the second chamber. Executive power is concentrated in hands of the cabinet. Government.
The government is obliged to agree on the main decisions with Parliament, and therefore it is formed on the basis of parliamentary majority. Any party in the recent history of the Netherlands had no absolute majority in Parliament, therefore the governments always had coalition character.
Political life of the Netherlands is rather rich and presented by numerous parties. It is possible to distinguish from the most popular parties of the Netherlands: People's Party for Freedom and Democracy, Democrats 66, and Party for Freedom. At the moment, after the elections to the House of Representatives, the following parties held on March 17, 2021 received places. The highest judicial authority, the Supreme Council. Hoge Raad. Courts of the Court of Appeal -4 trial chambers. Gerechtshof. Courts of First Instance -11 tribunals. Rechtbank. The lowest link of the judicial system, cantonal courts. Kantongerecht. Bodies of public prosecutors' supervision, the Prosecutor General's Office. Parquet General.
led by the general lawyer.
District Prosecutor's Offices. T. Led by the Chief General Counsel. On Judicial Chambers, Regional Prosecutors' Offices. Headed by the Chief Officer of Justice. On Tribunal. The Netherlands is divided into 12 provinces. The last province of Flevoland is created in 1986 in the drained territories. Provinces are divided into communities. As a part of the Netherlands, there are also 3 special communities in the Caribbean Sea: Bonaire, Saba and Sint Eustatius. Representative bodies of provinces, provincial states. Executive bodies of provinces, deputies of states. Consisting of the King's Commissioner and deputies. Representative bodies of communities, communal councils. Executive body, board of the burgomaster and advisors. Consisting of the burgomaster and advisors and the main units of local administration, communities, which for 2020 there are 355. Ethnic structure of the Netherlands as of 2021. Dutches and Frieses 75.36%. Turks and Kurds 2.42%. Moroccans and Berbers 2.37%. Surinamese 2.05%. Indonesians and Moluccanets 2.02%. Germans 1.98%. Poles 1.2%. Curaçao 0.75%. Belgians 0.7%.
The population as of November 15, 2021 is 17,582,208 people.
In the list of the countries by the number of inhabitants, the Netherlands takes the 66th place. In comparison with other countries of Europe, the population of the Netherlands very quickly grew the last 1.5 centuries. 3 million inhabitants in 1850. 5 million in the 1900th, 10 million in the 1950th, 15 million in the 1991st, 16 million in the 2002nd and 17 million in the 2017th. For comparison, the population of Belgium during the same period increased only approximately twice, from 5 million inhabitants in 1850 up to 10 million in the Ord. At the area of the territory in came.
According to data for 2020, the Netherlands has population density the 517th people per square kilometer.
Thus, the Netherlands is the 15th in population density state in the world.
3 western provinces are most densely populated:
Northern Holland, Southern Holland and Utrecht.
Average population density 1,000 people/km.
And more.
The maximum indicators are noted in the urbanized areas, over 2,000 people/km.
In many respects, thanks to it and also developed economy and the high level of income of the population, the Netherlands is one of the countries with the most developed transport and information infrastructure. For 2020, according to MEES, in the country there were internet users that made about 95% 4% of all population of the country. On it an indicator, the Netherlands took the 4th place in the EU after Denmark -97.9%, Malta -97.2%, Lithuania -96.8% and Estonia -96.3%. In the Netherlands there live two radical groups of the population, Dutches and Frieses, and also a large number of immigrants.
According to data of the World Factbook, the ethnic structure of the population as of 2018.
76.9% Dutches, 4% citizens of other countries of the members of the EU, 2.4% Turks, 2.3% Moroccans, 2.1% Indonesians, 2.1% Germans, 2% Surinamese, 1% Poles, 4.8% other ethnic groups.
The ethnic structure of the population as of 2021.
75.36% Dutches and Frieses, 2.42% Turks and Kurds, 2.37% Moroccans and Berbers, 2.05% Surinamese and Asteris, 2.02% Indonesians and Moluccans and 1.98% Germans, 1.2% Poles, 0.75% Curaçao, 0.7% Belgians, 11.15% other ethnic groups. The number of immigrants grows in four largest cities of the country: Amsterdam, The Hague, Rotterdam and Utrecht. As of January 1, 2020, in total immigrants and their descendants made 24.2% of the population of the Netherlands, but this share was higher in the large cities. In four largest cities, combined immigrants and their descendants made 51.8% of the population. In Amsterdam, immigrants and their descendants made 55.6% of the population. In The Hague, Rotterdam and Utrecht this indicator was 55.6%, 52.3% and 36.1% respectively. The structure of the population on religion as of 2019. 20.1% Catholics, 14.8% Protestants, 5.0% Muslims, 5.9% practice other religions, including Hindus, Buddhists, Jews. 54.1 Irreligiana. Average age of the population of the Netherlands according to data of the World Factbook for 2020 was 42.8 years. The 32nd place in the world. Including men have 41.6 years and women have 44 years. The population of the Netherlands is the highest in the world. Average growth of adult men -182.5 cs, adult women -168.7 cs. As of October 1, 2021, in total immigrants and their descendants made 4,404,306 people, or 25.1% of the population of the Netherlands. The number of educated aged people from 15 to 65 years is people for 2011. In the Netherlands, compulsory free education for children and teenagers aged up to 16 years. Elementary school is attended by children with 5, and at the request of parents with, to 12 years. It is distinguished by a big variety of training programs. At high school, which visit is obligatory for each child aged from 12 up to 16 years, there is more uniformity in educational process. It is possible to graduate in college, Hogescholen, the university or the Open University, an evening or correspondence course. 14 universities. The oldest university of the Netherlands, Leiden, based in 1575. And the Open University for adults work in the country. The higher education is usually calculated on a 6-year course. The Netherlands, the most densely populated country of Europe. If to exclude several countries dwarfs.
On the territories of the country very dense river network agreeing on her mouths of the Rhine rivers, Maas and Scheldt form the extensive general navigable delta.
The rivers are deep and bring the Massachusetts of deposits, but quite often their courses bear danger of floods. The delta and the extensive flat lowland were formed of the soils put with these rivers. The relief of the Netherlands is generally made by coastal lowlands. In the southeast there are small heights, also rather large territories are developed at the expense of marine territories. A half of the territory lies below sea level, and only in the south of the Netherlands the area raises up to 30 meters and more. The most part of lowlands is in provinces Northern Holland, the Southern Holland and Flevoland. The coastline is created by alluvial dunes. They are followed by the lands which are once won from the sea called by polder and protected by dunes and dams from sea waters. In general the majority of soils belongs to Podzolok, but near the North Sea there are also fertile silty soils, and on valleys of the rivers, alluvial and meadow. Poldera, almost completely used for needs of agriculture, are put mainly by clays and peat. In the southern and east regions of the country the sandy soils substantially occupied under arable lands are widespread in the basic. In places here heather heathlands. In Itkakravia with low shrubs. And the pine and oak and beechen woods remained. Plateaus of the southern Limburg are covered with the loess of alien origin. Here the fertile loamy soils making an agriculture basis are developed. The majority of the wild animal Netherlands is forced out from habitats by the person. Nevertheless in the country many birds, especially natatorial meet. Many rare species of animals are under protection in national parks and reserves. 21.96% of the earth are used for a plowed land. The highest point of the country, Valserberg, 322 m. Located in the southeast, and the lowest Zuidplaspolder, 6.74 m below sea level. In general climate moderate sea, not hot summer and rather warm winter is characteristic. Average temperature of July is +16. +17 C. January about +2 C on the coast and are slightly colder deep into than the continent. The absolute maximum of air temperature, +38. 6 C. Was noted on August 23, 1944 in Warnsvelde, an absolute minimum. 27.4 C. It was registered on January 27, 1942 in Winterswijk. In the winter wind from Eastern Europe anticyclones interfere, temperature falls below 0 C, snow drops out, and canals and lakes become covered with ice. Though in a year from 650 to 750 mm of rainfall on average drop out, rare days without rain. Often there are fogs, in the winter snow sometimes drops out. A quarter of the territory of the country lies below sea level on 5.7 m. The seventh part of the land is at the height only 1 m above sea level, and only 1/50 part of the territory of the country are higher than a mark of 50 m. Since the Roman Empire Netherlanders win the earth from the sea. The first polder appeared in the 13th century, and since then along the coast significant areas were drained. But at the same time the history of the Netherlands is story of continuous fight of people against the sea. However, the nature came to the rescue of the person here, having protected a part of the coast quite wide belt of sandy dunes. But this belt was not continuous, and besides sand vanished winds. Then people began to strengthen dunes various landings, and in places of gaps to construct earth dams and dams. They began to build the same dams and dams on the rivers. From here, by the way, occur and I will give numerous place names with determination. A dam. For example, Amsterdam. A dam on the Amstel River. A Rotterdam. A dam on the Rot River.
Today the total length of a continuous chain of dams and the strengthened dunes exceeds 300 km.
Build them not of sand and a stone anymore, and of reinforced and steel structures. The paramount importance of this problem was the cause to organize Department on Protection Against Floods, Waterschap. Waterschap. Large meliorative projects were carried out in 1930-1950. Then the artificial Lake IJsselmeer, which became to the largest in Western Europe. On the place of the drained gulf, the 12th Netherlands province of Flevoland was formed. Was created.
After a severe flood of 1953, when the sea broke through many coastal dams, was decided to put into practice the Delta project, providing separation from the sea of mouths of the rivers with preservation of navigation on numerous channels.
Having fenced off from the sea, Nederlanders were accepted to creation of polder.
It is the Netherlands term designating the ground won from the sea, protected from all directions by dams and used for resettlement of people and various forms of managing too.
Even more polder began to arise on the place of the drained lakes, and peat bogs turned into fertile fields. In the 1960th years, on the place of one of the drained lakes to the south from Amsterdam, there was the main international airport of the country, Schiphol, one of the largest in Europe. In the Middle Ages, for pumping of water used windmills, in the 19th century began to use steam pumps, and in the 20th century, electric pump.
In total, by the beginning of the 21st century in the country too, 8,000 big and small polder with a total area of 20,000 km are created already.
What corresponds to about a half of the territory of the country. Advantages: highly skilled and multilingual labor. Excellent infrastructure. An expensive social system with high taxes and social insurance payments. A third of state revenues goes for social payments. High costs of salary.
Low inflation. For August 2017, this indicator was
1.3%. Unemployment rate as of August 2017 is 4.7%. As of 2017, the average amount of compensation in the Netherlands is Euro 28.55. $3,207.06 gross. And Euro 21.52. $2,417.33 net. In a month. The government of the Netherlands corrects the size of minimum wage 2 times a year, on January 1 and on July 1, according to changes of the average, collectively coordinated salary in the Netherlands. Since January 1, 2020 the minimum wage for persons is more senior than 21 years in the Netherlands makes €1,653.60. Gross. And €1523 net. In a month. The major industries: mechanical engineering, electronics, petrochemistry, aircraft industry, shipbuilding, ferrous metallurgy, textile industry, furniture industry, pulp and paper industry. The Netherlands, the advanced country in the economic plan. 73% of GDP, the industry and construction -24.5%, agriculture and fishery -2.5% of the share of services sector. Among the most important sectors of rendering services prevail: transport and communication, credit and financial system, research and development. Research and development. Education, international tourism, complex of business services. The heavy industry, oil processing, chemical production, ferrous metallurgy and mechanical engineering, are concentrated in coastal areas, especially in Rotterdam and also in Emden, Dordrecht, Arnhem and Nijmegen. All these cities stand on the navigable rivers or channels. On the sea coast wind power farms are located. Also production of cheeses, chocolate, cigars, gin, beer is developed. The known industry, despite modest scales, is processing of diamonds in Amsterdam. In the Netherlands, the headquarters and production capacities of such multinational and European companies as Royal Dutch Shell, Unilever, Royal Philips Electronics are located. The Netherlands banking system is presented by such banks as ABN AMRO, Ingropen, 5, and Rabobank.
In 2002 the Netherlands entered at themselves the all-European currency euro, having replaced with it gulden.
Zones with a special economic regime are located on the Antilles, in particular, on the island of Curaçao that is a powerful economic zone of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Main articles of import: oil, cast iron and steel, clothes, non-ferrous metals, foodstuff, various transport equipment, rubber. Main trade partners of the country: Germany, Belgium, Great Britain, France. The importance in mining industry of the Netherlands occupies natural gas. On pipelines, gas is distributed from Groningen through the whole country and for export. On reserves of this mineral, the Netherlands wins first place in Western Europe and with an indicator of production of 3.1%, the sixth place in the world. Till 1975 in the province Limburg extracted coal. In the cities of Hengelo and Delfzijl salt mines worked with capacity of production of 4 million tons per year.
Reserves of natural gas are estimated at 15 billion m.
As of 2017. On the Dutch part of the continental shelf oil production is conducted. There are also clays. The flat relief creates favorable conditions for development of network of roads, but the large number of the rivers and canals creates certain difficulties and risks in road construction.
Says the fact that from one border it is possible to reach another in 3-4 hours about the small area of the state.
Total length of a railway system is 2753 km. From them are electrified more than 2,000 km. Total length of highways is 138,641 km, of them highways minus 2756 km.
Extent of the navigable rivers and canals available to vessels with the displacement up to 50 tons is 6237 km.
An important role in national economy is also played by ocean navigation. Rotterdam is one of the largest seaports of the world on goods turnover. The Netherlands processes a considerable part of the European freight traffics. The KLM airline serves many international routes.
The government of the Netherlands continuously fights against traffic jams for improvement of a transport situation on the road and an ecological situation in general.
In many large cities, jams on roads are the reason of environmental pollution, where the share of such damage to the environment makes 50% of total. The bicycle in the Netherlands is widely used type of transport. Moving by bicycle over the country, it is possible to overcome the distance comparable with a trip by train. By some estimates, Dutchess have not less than 18 million bicycles, that makes more than one bicycle per capita. In 2013, the European Federation of Cyclists estimated the Netherlands and Denmark as the countries optimum for cyclists in Europe. The bicycle, the most used type of transport in usual day.
Along thoroughfares there are about 35000 km of the bicycle paths which are physically separated from the motorized transport.
At busy intersections often install traffic lights for cyclists. In the cities, big parking for bicycles, especially in the center and at stations, are organized. Despite the territory sizes, the Netherlands takes the second place in the world on export of food measured on value, ceding only the USA, and the first place in the European Union. In 2016, agricultural export exceeded 94 billion euros against 90 billion in 2015. At the moment, 22% of the total amount of export of the country are the share of the agri-food sector. The country exports mainly vegetables, fruit, dairy products, meat and products of processing, flowers. It should be noted the growing demand for the Dutch agricultural materials and technologies. Energy-efficient greenhouses, the systems of exact agriculture by means of GPS and unmanned aerial vehicles, new discoveries which are made by cultures steadier against effects of climate change and diseases. Land grounds. As of 2015, about 31% of agricultural grounds are occupied with arable lands, 24% pastures and 11% are covered with the woods. The soil in the Netherlands look after carefully, besides, by amount of the introduced mineral fertilizers on hectare. The country in 2005 won first place in the world.
The area of the lands irrigated for agricultural needs is 5650 km.
As of 2003. Crop production. In some regions of the country, near Amsterdam, floriculture prevails. Also potatoes, sugar beet and grain crops, etc. are grown up. Important article of export, high quality greenhouse and tinned vegetables. Livestock production. The 5th place in Europe on production of oil and the 4th in production of cheese. The pasturable livestock production is most widespread. On Polder more than 4.5 million heads of cattle. About 3. 5% of the cattle of the U. Liposotsia. The dairy herd in 2005 contained about 1.4 million heads. In the mid-80s there were about 2.5 million heads. The efficiency of herd is very high, average milk yield are more than 9,000 liters of milk a year.
In recent years the government of the Netherlands takes measures which are directed to reduction of quantity of the dairy cattle for minimization of production of phosphates and their influence on the environment.
According to the Minister of Agriculture of the Netherlands Martin van Dam, in plans of the state program for reduction of a livestock of the cattle 60,000 heads from which were already hammered will be liquidated. These measures were taken after the Netherlands reached the limits on fodder phosphates which were authorized by the European Union. Greenhouse facility. On space reserved for greenhouse facility, the Netherlands wins first place in the world. From 1994 to 2005 the area of greenhouses increased from 13 up to 15,000 hectares. Greenhouses usually by means of local natural gas are warmed. 60% of the protected soil are taken away under floriculture. Armed Forces of the Netherlands consist of 4 types of military forces. Royal Ground Forces, the Royal Navies, the including services of naval aircraft, Marine Luchtvaartdienst, and Marine Corps, Royal Air Force, Royal Military Police. The Commander-in-Chief of all types of military forces is the King of the Netherlands Willem-Alexander. The Commander of the Royal Navies of the Netherlands and the Admiral of the Benelux countries, the Lieutenant General Rob Verkerk. The Acting Minister of Defense, N.G. Bijleveld. Rembrandt van Rijn, one of the most famous artists of the world. In the Netherlands many famous artists lived and worked. In the 16th century Jerome Bosch created the works. In the 17th century there lived such masters as Rembrandt van Rijn, January Vermeer, January Steen and many others. In the 19th and 20th centuries Vincent van Gogh and Piet Mondrian were famous. Maurice Cornelis Ascher is known as the graphic artist. Willem de Kooning got an education in Rotterdam, and subsequently became the famous American artist. Hang van Meegeren became famous for the fakes of classical pictures. In the Netherlands there lived philosophers Erasmus Rotterdamus and Spinoza. All main works of Descartes were performed there.
The scientist Christian Huygens opened the satellite of Saturn the Titan and invented the pendulum clock.
Golden Age of the Netherlands also led to blossoming of literature. Just van den Vondel and Peter Cornelissen Hooft were the famous writers. In the 19th century Multatuli, Edward Doos Dekker, wrote about improper treatment with natives in the Netherlands colonies. Harry Mulisch, January Volkers, Simon Westick, Gerard Reeve, Willem Frederik Hermans and Cees Noteboom were important writers of the 20th century. Anne Frank wrote the well-known Anne Frank's Diary, which was published after her death in a Nazi concentration camp and is translated from Netherlands to all main languages.
The Netherlands art of 20th century gained more experimental character, at the same time without refusing completely traditional realism.
In the 1950th years interest in poetry quickened. In works by such writers as Willem Frederik Hermans, Gerard Reeve, Harry Mulisch, the description of disharmonious aspects of life intertwines with realistic traditions. In painting and in sculpture, all modern directions from which in the 1958 years the Cobra group headed by such master as Karel Appel was most distinguished are presented. In music, the international recognition was won by the composer Willem Pieper.
In all large cities there are wonderful symphonic orchestras. From them orchestras are most known Amsterdam and Hague Royal.
The Netherlands Ballet, one of the best in Europe. Among the famous Netherlands film directors, Joost Stelling and Paul Verhoeven. Among actors Rutger Hauer, and among actresses, Sylvia Kristel and Famke Janssen is most known. Such metal bands as Pestilence, The Gathering, Arian, Within Temptation, Delain, Exvius and Epica, and also the rock groups Shocking Blue and Focus are also world famous. Besides, the Netherlands is famous for world famous sound producers and G. Tiesto, Hardwell, Armin van Buuren, Danik, Ferry Corsten, Afrojack, Sander van Doorn, Laidback Luke, Mitch Crown, Sidney Samson, Martin Garrix. In the Netherlands there are a lot of wonderful museums. Outstanding works of painting of the Netherlands artists are presented in Rijksmuseum and Rembrandt's House Museum in Amsterdam, the Museum Boijmans, Van Beuningen in Rotterdam, and the Museum Maurits Quoys in The Hague, and also in some large provincial museums, for example Frans Halse's Museum in Haarlem and the Central Museum of Utrecht. The City Museum of Amsterdam has a large collection of art of 19th-20th centuries. More than 700 pictures and the master's sketches are stored in the State Museum of Vincent van Gogh in Amsterdam.
In the Museum Kröller-Müller in Wijk the big collection of works of Van Gogh is also presented.
Besides, the collection of works of the modern art is presented there. One of the most popular sports in the Netherlands is the soccer. The first information about him originates in 1865.
At the same time, the oldest football club of the Netherlands is the Koninklijke Czech Club, that it was based 1879.
Then the organization in the city of Hague of the Netherlands Union of Soccer and Athletics in 1889 followed. The soccer national team of the Netherlands is constantly included into the first 20 of the strongest in the world. At rather strong level on the international scene, the women's national team of the Netherlands on soccer acts. Under the leadership of the head coach Sarina Wiegman, the team won the European Football Championship among women of 2017.
In the territory of the country there took place such significant football tournaments as the European Championship of 2000 and the European Championship among women of 2017.
Among winter sports for residents of the Netherlands, a specific place is held by speed skating. History of this sport originates far deep into.
According to notes about Peter I's stay in the Netherlands 1697, 1698 and 1716, 1717, yeah.
Hey. No men at Dutches traditionally skated long ago and trained Mukvitini that came to them. The Netherlands skaters won a set of the most prestigious tournaments and are considered as some of the strongest in the world. Also in the country, combat sports have huge popularity. Kickboxing, the Thai boxing, karate, judo are especially well developed. The School of Thai Boxing and Kickboxing of the Netherlands is often called the second house for Thai boxing. The known sports invented in the Netherlands are Athletes of the Netherlands win very large number of medals in relation to the population of the country at the Olympic Games and the World Cups. Thousands of fans from the Netherlands visit competitions in foreign countries, having put on in orange colors which are always carried by players of the national team in soccer. Also enjoy popularity at the population.
Baseball, tennis, bicycle sport, field hockey, volleyball, handball and golf.
The Netherlands architecture had a considerable impact on development of world architecture. In the 16th century it considerably differed from all known styles in Europe of those times. The special style was developed on the basis of avarice and moderation, inherent in Calvinism that was contrary to splendor and furniture in the French and Spanish yards. Representatives of the Dutch architecture of the 17th century were Lieven Dijk and Hendrik de Kuyzer. The trace in development of the Dutch architecture was left by the late Renaissance.
Influence which dawn fell on the period of the end of the 17th century was so considerable that expression the Dutch Baroque,
the Dutch Classicism, was entered into use. Facades of many government buildings, banks and manufactories were trimmed in this style. Jacob van Campen and Peter Post were the best known architects of this period. In style of the Dutch architecture of the 19th century Classicism and also various currents prevailed. For example, a Neo-Gothic style. Construction of such known constructions as Rijksmuseum, the University of Utrecht, the Central Station of Amsterdam falls on this period. Eugen Gugel and Petrus Cuypers were prominent architects of this time. Transition of the Dutch architecture from Classicism to a modernist style and constructivism fell on the end of the beginning of the 20th century. Petrus Barlek, Petrus Cuypers' pupil, by right is considered the founder of modern Netherlands architecture. Modern apartment houses which facades are over a surface of the water of channels are often equipped with rooms below water level under auto parkings. In Amsterdam there is a quarter of floating private houses with concrete, floating bases, which if necessary can be Perbekseervanne. All communications are brought to such houses. Ancient houses often have narrow ladders with the steep slope. Such houses had a beam acting from roof ridges for raising of furniture on the top floors through a window, and facades of such houses had a bias. Historical facades of such houses remained. Residents of provincial towns like to decorate the yards and facades of the lodges with elements of small architectural forms, shops at entrance doors that creates a special coziness in such settlements. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.